The symbolism of Venus, Cupid and Eros. The physical planet Venus is named after the goddess Venus. Astrologically speaking, Venus is associated with, and I quote, the principles of harmony, beauty, refinement, affections, and erotic passion, and love, but the classical Latin noun Venus, meaning love, was used to indicate sexual love or desire, and overall she more correctly represents desire, the desire for pleasure, luxuries, comfort, ease, and sex. Indeed, she is said to rule over the reproductive system, although actually she does the opposite. Very little ruling occurs. The sexual symbolism of Venus has led to her name being used in words such as a venery, sexual indulgence, and a venereal, relating to sexual desire or sexual intercourse, and of course, venereal disease. The 1st century poet Marcus Manilius described Venus as generous and fecund, meaning very freely sexually. Though Venus is not associated with childbearing or rearing. Maybe Wikipedia best sums up her charms. The ambivalence of her persuasive functions has been perceived in the relationship of the root Venus, with its Latin derivative venemen, poison, from Venus, addicting, meaning the first impressions of a benign, beautiful love goddess may be very deceptive. She was, after all, a goddess of war, and she seems well equipped to wage war with those of a less sexual disposition. She competes for men's affections, with those who have children and elderly parents to look after, and a house to manage and a job, and are too tired to be sexy, and were only ever sweet or wholesome, but never captivating, because Venus is captivating, but absolutely lethal. It should be remembered that Venus has a long association with wine, reflecting the connection between wine, intoxication and sex, expressed in the phrase sine serere e bacco friget Venus, which loosely translated means, without food and wine, Venus freezes. Indeed, in the rites to Bona Dea, a goddess of female chastity, Venus and anything male were not only excluded, but unmentionable. Furthermore, according to Dr Thomas Apel, Venus had a fluid sexuality and embraced male and female lovers alike. Venus's chief weapons were her charm and erotic appeal, and in her mythological tradition, many fell victim to them. She knew her allure too. She is used to always idling in the shade, and by cultivating it enhancing her beauty. Although she was married to the blacksmith god Vulcan, Venus had a voracious sexual appetite that could not be satisfied by a single man. Venus and Mars slept together on a regular basis, and in Ovid's Metamorphoses, Venus even carried out an affair with Adonis, a mortal male, known for his unrivaled beauty. In Virgil's Aeneid, Venus disguised herself as a comely virgin and seduced Anchises, a member of the royal family of Troy, only revealing her true identity after she had become pregnant. It is worth remembering Venus was also the goddess of prostitutes. And during the excavation of Pompeii, archaeologists discovered at least 25 separate brothels. The physical planet. Venus is the second planet from the Sun and the brightest natural object in Earth's night sky after the Moon. It is most readily visible for up to a few hours following the start of sunset or before sunrise, and is, as a consequence, known as the morning star or the evening star. Because the movements of Venus appear to be discontinuous, it disappears due to its proximity to the Sun for many days at a time and then reappears on the other horizon. Some cultures did not recognize Venus as a single entity. Instead, they assumed it to be two separate stars on each horizon, the morning and evening star. Theology professor Geoffrey Cooley has argued that myth has been invented to help people remember this, but it is also likely that the star was chosen to reflect the symbolism, a planet that is somewhat capricious in its actions, but beautiful, undoubtedly beautiful. Venus has a similar size and mass to the Earth, and one could almost convince oneself that you had found a sort of paradise twin. But you would be deceived. Venus has the densest atmosphere of the 4 terrestrial planets, consisting of more than 96% carbon dioxide. You would suffocate. The atmospheric pressure at the planet's surface is about 92 times the sea level pressure of Earth. You would be crushed to a pulp. And even though Mercury is closer to the Sun, Venus has the hottest surface of any planet in the solar system, 464 degrees centigrade, or 867 degrees Fahrenheit. So you would be burnt to a cinder immediately. That shimmering, smooth, blue, fluffy surface is actually an opaque layer of clouds of sulfuric acid, preventing its surface from being seen from Earth in light. And it may have had water oceans in the past, but it doesn't now. All these evaporated as the temperature rose under a runaway greenhouse effect. Yes, it appears beautiful from a distance, a shimmering ball of blue-violet looking inviting and benign, yet it is deadly. So the choice of this goddess to represent this planet was somehow rather apt. Venus is not all she seems. Myrtle. Venus is associated with myrtle, Latin myrtus, and I quote, "It was cultivated for its white, sweetly scented flowers, aromatic evergreen leaves, and its various magical properties." What were those magical properties? And again I quote, "Myrtle was thought a particularly potent aphrodisiac." Well, I suppose if you thought myrtle could cure you of all the sexually transmitted diseases rife at the time. It might have been a sort of aphrodisiac. But this misleading statement is a very convenient way of saying that myrtle actually fights sexual diseases. Modern research has confirmed its efficacy. Candidiasis, bacterial vaginosis, and trichomoniasis have been treated using traditional Persian medicine containing myrtle, Myrtus communis L, and oak gall, Quercus infectoria G. Olivier. PMID 328888185. Myrtle was also used to disinfect water and in cooking. The smoke from myrtle wood was used, and the body cavities were stuffed with the herb, but not for the flavour. In an age without refrigeration, it was to kill the pathogens. But Venus carried myrtle because of the pathogens that attack the reproductive system. The vulvar area alone is particularly susceptible to a multitude of infectious diseases. Viral, genital herpes, herpes zoster, genital warts, and molluscum contagiosum. Bacterial, syphilis, chancroid, lymphogranuloma venereum, donovanosis, erysipelas, cellulitis, and necrotizing fasciitis, folliculitis, impetigo, Bartholin gland abscess, trichomycosis, and erythrasma. Fungal, candidiasis, and dermatophytosis. And parasitic, pediculosis pubis. And myrtle was a traditional cure for most of them. So she may have been the temptation, but she symbolically did at least carry the treatment for the ills she carried. Do all Venuses have this symbolism? In short, yes. As with all these gods and goddesses, we find them differently named in different cultures and over many ages of time, but their similarities show them to be essentially the same or very similar goddesses. Thus we have, for example, Greek Aphrodite. Aphrodite's most ancient cult statues in Sparta and on Cythera even showed her bearing arms. She was even created through violence. In myth, she was born already in adult form, from the sea foam produced by the severed genitals of Uranus. Inanna was the ancient Mesopotamian goddess of beauty, sex, war, and fertility, worshipped in Sumer around 4000 BC. Ishtar was originally worshipped in Sumer under the name Inanna, and later by the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians under the name Ishtar. Astarte. Inanna, Ishtar greatly influenced the Ugaritic Ashtart and later Phoenician Astarte. Shukra. In classical Vedic astrology, or Jyotisha, Shukra is considered to be among the Navagrahas, the 9 planets, and represents beauty, wealth, luxury, and sex. Inanna, Venus and the goddess of war. As we have seen, the Sumerians worshipped Inanna as the goddess of both warfare and love. Unlike other gods whose roles were static and whose domains were limited, the stories of Inanna describe her as moving from conquest to conquest. She was portrayed as young and impetuous, constantly striving for more power than she had been allotted. Although she was worshipped as the goddess of love, Inanna was not the goddess of marriage, nor was she ever viewed as a mother goddess. Andrew R. George goes as far as stating that according to all mythology, she was not temperamentally disposed towards such functions. Indeed, Joan Goodnick Westenholz even noted that Inanna was significant specifically because she was not a mother goddess. On the other hand, as a love goddess, she was commonly invoked in incantations. There is a myth entitled Inanna's Descent to the Underworld, and it is noticeable that Inanna treats her lover Dumuzid in a very shabby manner. This aspect of Inanna's personality is emphasized in the later standard Akkadian version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which Gilgamesh points out Ishtar's infamous ill-treatment of her lovers. Even though she ordered Anu to release the bull of heaven to destroy Gilgamesh for having turned down her sexual advances, Gilgamesh pointed out that he would be a fool to succumb. Listen to me while I tell the tale of your lovers. There was Tammuz, the lover of your youth. For him you decreed wailing year after year. You loved the many-coloured lilac-breasted roller, but still you struck and broke his wing. You loved the lion, tremendous in strength. 7 pits you dug for him, and 7. You have loved the stallion, magnificent in battle, and for him you decreed the whip, and spur, and a thong. You have loved the shepherd of the flock. He made meal cake for you day after day. He killed kids for your sake. You struck and turned him into a wolf, and now his own herd boys chase him away. His own hounds worry his flanks. One of the hymns dedicated to her declares she stirs confusion and chaos against those who are disobedient to her, speeding carnage and inciting the devastating flood, clothed in terrifying radiance. It is her game to speed conflict and battle, untiring, strapping on her sandals. Battle itself was occasionally referred to as the dance of Inanna. I hope the picture is clear. Venus symbolically represents an almost otherworldly beauty, who has surrounded herself with the symbols of love, peace and purity, but she is the ultimate femme fatale, capable of seducing any male, married or not, and who underneath is a terrible danger to health, to marriages, to peace. Venus's alternative names. The Roman Empire culturally was violent and promiscuous. Although the name Venus came directly from the classical Latin noun Venus, meaning love, this was not love as we would define it, and the epithets, festivals and temples created for her reflect this. For example, Venus Calva, Venus the Bald One, a legendary form of Venus attested only by post-classical Roman writings. And syphilis is capable of causing hair loss as a direct symptom. Venus barbata, bearded Venus, was mentioned by Macrobius and describes a statue in Cyprus, bearded and manlike, but in female attire. All women produce some testosterone, but higher than normal levels increases your sex drive and produces excess facial and body hair. One of the main causes is polycystic ovary syndrome. Parasites and viruses such as herpes simplex and HPV are implicated in polycystic ovary syndrome. Venus Erycina. Erycine Venus came from Eryx in Sicily, at a temple outside the Porta Collina, a temple considered suitable for common girls and prostitutes. Venus Felix. Lucky Venus. Felix means happy or lucky. On the other hand, Felis, not Felix, is a genus of small and medium-sized cat species, and Inanna had a cat as one of her symbols. Venus Genetrix. Julius Caesar publicly linked his family's heritage to the goddess's maternal line, making Venus the progenitor of the first imperial dynasty. He erected a temple of Venus Genetrix in the new forum he constructed, with the aim of affirming this claim, that he descended from a goddess. Venus Calipigos. Venus with the beautiful buttocks, a statue from Syracuse, Sicily. Venus Libertinas. A libertine is a person devoid of most moral principles, a sense of responsibility or sexual restraints, especially someone who ignores or even spurns accepted morals and forms of behaviour. Venus Obsequens. Indulgent Venus. Venus first attested Roman epithet. Her temple was supposedly funded by fines imposed on women found guilty of adultery. Venus Verticordia. Sometime in the late 3rd century BC, a statue was dedicated to Venus Verticordia. The Sibylline books prescribe the dedication as a cure for the prevailing licentiousness of women. The hope was that matrons and unmarried girls would more readily turn from licentiousness to chastity. Venus and Mars, Cupid and Eros. Venus's son by Mars was Cupid. Symbolically, he wreaks as much havoc as his mother. The message here is that human love, when it is the sort propounded by Venus through sex, and Cupid, unrequited love, spurned love and rejection, lost love and grief, etc., hurts. It hurts emotionally and it hurts physically. Cupid and Eros were never the same entity. Eros had neither mother or father, because Greek Eros represents divine love, and Eros defeats earthly love every time. Hesiod categorized Eros as a primordial deity, who emerged from chaos as a generative power. Eros, according to Hesiod, is the love that was the basis of the creation of the universe, and as such was one of the first gods to be created. Or to quote from Wikipedia, he is a primeval deity who embodies the creative urge of ever-flowing nature, the firstborn light for the coming into being and ordering of all things in the cosmos.